Hello and welcome back to Taking Back Saturday, a Happy Buyers Club podcast where we break down the real estate market each and every Friday to help home buyers build confidence, follow a process and hopefully buy really happy. I'm your host, Chase Jones, and joining me as he does each and every day of each and every week, particularly in studio here on a Friday, it's my mate, Sam Hunter. How are you, mate?
People only get half the experience listening to this show, I think. You've got to give the full-length YouTube a go for just the energy behind the intro, me looking for my water bottle, us promising ourselves we're going to get out of here in 10 minutes, and we've already wasted 5 minutes talking about this.
I break down the third wall sometimes and stare down the camera, which, you know, for the 9 people that do watch the full length on YouTube, sure. That's for you.
100%. Thank you to our parents, brothers and sisters and cousins.
Yeah. So, Mum, you did ask for what's happening in the market right now. So we're going to do a quick market wrap of what we're seeing out on the ground late March.
For sure. I think people are talking about Easter. Everyone now feels like it is appropriate to start eating hot cross buns. And with that brings this almost trepidation that the market's kind of going to go to sleep until after the long weekend.
I will note as well, Sam thought that school holidays was a month away.
For sure.
Realistically, it's 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
And then, you know, April, the middle of April is our Easter long weekend. So it's coming.
It is coming. And actually, there's a sense, certainly in the last week, we all thought that it would be a pretty quiet week after what was Cyclone Alfred and was whatever it was, just a storm.
The X.
Yeah.
Tropical.
However, I think last week was actually probably the quietest week in real estate for 2025. That 17th to 23rd of March, there was not quite crickets, but pretty close to. Not a lot of new property listed. And that has, we just got off the phone, this podcast is being recorded nearly 40 minutes after we intended to, because we had a phone call
happening,
being like, you guys got anyone who needs to sell your house? And I was like, man, we're buyer's agents. You're not necessarily finding you clients to sell their houses. And it is, if it's tight for agents and you're listening to this show, you will feel like it's tight for you as well. And that is just because it is. It's really low on new listings right now.
Not unsurprising that the week following the big weather events, you're going to have people that want to dry out the house, pick up the sticks, whatever it was. You know, as minor as it may be for someone that is selling their biggest asset, they do want to present it in its best light, and they don't want the wet ground.
Rightly
Even
so.
if they weren't affected, so to speak, from the cyclone, there is a perception that they just want to make things perfect, and that's totally understandable. What that I would have thought meant for us is that the week following there might have been listings pushed, when the reality was that it's just tight.
For sure. We had a conversation this morning with an agent. We had a coffee with him. He had 8 what we call listing agreements. So people signed up to sell their house with this guy, ready to go, but none of them are listing until after Easter. Because for whatever reason, family, kids, sports, holidays, they're just not ready. They've picked their agent. They know their price. They're either going to auction, offers over, whatever it might be, but they're not getting ready. I don't know whether that's indicative of the market or otherwise, but certainly we probably saw, even the week after Alfred, I reckon we were probably through 30 off-market houses that week, and we would have seen 10, I think, in the last 7 days. And that's just, I think, the reality of where we are in the market. I also think that it is proof that there is a gap widening every day almost between sellers' expectations, who have been on a roller coaster of the real estate market for the last 4 years, where in Brisbane at least prices have continued to go up and up and up and up at a pretty fast pace.
And they've heard it at every barbecue, and they've heard it from every friend and family member to say, hey,
that's it. We wanted this, we got this, how good's real estate?
It just keeps on going. It's just this never-ending ride.
And now it's become their time to at least consider going to market or go to market. And the market, in my view, and again, this is one person's view, hopefully you share the same thing, I wish
you'd told me this beforehand.
Yeah, I don't think it's done that much this year. If a property sold on the 24th of January, it's probably worth what it's worth on the 28th or 29th of March as well.
It's not flat, it's probably just fair.
Yeah.
And for a lot of buyers out there, I hope that gives you confidence, albeit here we are speaking about the gap where sellers' expectations maybe are getting away. But if you can speak to good comparable sales that have happened in the last 3 months, the market is fair through that time. There may have been very slight incremental growth, but you can speak to sales that happened even as far back as November last year and be like, this is the same size block. These are both, semi-renovated properties, same key attributes. That's my comparable. That's how I'm justifying my offer. And feel free to stand your ground.
100%. And I think if they are genuinely comparable, remove the idea of buying it for less. That's just, I don't think that that's getting anyone really good results, putting forward offers that can't be defended, can't be justified, and just feel uninformed. There's no such thing as a cheeky offer, I think, in this market. I think they are generally informed and uninformed offers. And coming in below the feedback just because you think it's a good place to start doesn't set you up to buy the house. It sets you up for the agent to not take you seriously. And that might actually be the difference in terms of a quick, easy, maybe a little bit stressful negotiation versus them not ringing you back and selling it to somebody else, and then you having the story of they never even called me back.
Because there was your
for sure
cheeky offer, which may have just come from a place of that you didn't actually have anything to speak to as a comparable. You didn't actually have the justification for that said cheeky offer. All it did was potentially put a vendor's nose out of joint, an agent that isn't really there to want to vouch for you. Being uninformed. Particularly
in a fair market where there is still, in most instances, competition. It's just not racing away from you in terms of competition.
For sure. Back to sellers' expectation. It's it's not that sellers are getting greedier and greedier. It is human nature that people think that their greatest asset is worth more than it probably is. That's human nature, right?
You're raising your 2 kids in your house. I'm raising my 2 kids in my house. That makes it worth more to us than anybody else. You just don't figure that out until you put a sign out the front and a stranger tells you how much they think your house is worth. And you're just like, you don't know what's happened in this house.
And all the things you've turned a blind eye to, they're like, these are actual objections and challenges for me and my family. And you're like, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
I've had to live with that. Now I'm selling it.
Yeah, that does suck.
Yeah. The walls are dirty, but they're dirty with my kids' scribbles.
Yeah. Good agents, though, are having all of these conversations around what the expected feedback might look like, where pricing could look like based on other comparable sales, not just justifying what a absolute premium price looks like and the comparable sales to compare at the top end. They should be having them based off the bottom end as well, and how they then would strategize with negotiating with that potential buyer. I'm sure that good agents are having those conversations. I mean, I interviewed one of them on the podcast just this week.
Absolutely. And your point of the agents who are having those conversations early, I think, is reflected in the fact that because listings are tight, like what you see on realestate.com, and again, the data will come out at the start of April, and we'll do our regular sort of market wrap. Look out for that on Instagram. We'll have a brief conversation about it on an episode at some point in April as well. People are not going on the market now with a want to sell. They need to sell, whether they have bought something else or whether they are facilitating to then go and buy something else. There is a need. People just don't move for the sake of it. It's over $100,000 to go and move house in agent fees, moving costs, and stamp duty if you're buying again. You don't just put $100,000 in a fire pit and light it on fire. It is for the good of your family, or because of a family circumstance, or because of a work circumstance, right? There's a genuine motivation behind there. So take heart that when you see the new photos of the new listing come on realestate.com, those people actually really, really, really want to sell their house, and they will look at all good offers. And ideally that's matched with an agent who will present and negotiate all good offers. But the reality of where we came back to is they might have higher expectations. It doesn't mean that they won't meet the market. It just means that you've got to be able to justify where you see value instead of just putting something silly forward and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I actually like that you touched on there about sellers and their need to sell, because I know for us in particular, and we are based on the south side of Brisbane, we do buy within a 12k radius of Brisbane CBD on all sides.
Maybe not the west side. Sorry, Westies.
For a lot of the clients that we represent, it's just a funny niche that we found ourselves. We are buying a lot of family homes in the mid ones. And that market is probably one of the tightest of all the markets, being that family that owns that property in the mid ones is not really doing that great. They're not rushing out to go and buy the $2 million property, the $2.5 million property, which may have been the natural progression of family life, go back 5 years. But groceries are expensive. Fuel is expensive. So for them to now consider moving, it is based on a need, whether it's a change of job, whether it is a financial decision to downsize, to move into a different school catchment. Those motivations are there to be uncovered. And I think that with the right questions and by preparing yourself and understanding those motivations, you put yourself in a better position to help them with their move, as well as help you get into their house.
For sure.
Formerly their house.
Formerly their house, exactly. Your point of these people are not doing all that great. Like, prices in real estate are extortionate. At least they feel extortionate, right? You have to be kind of doing it all day, every day to look at a house that sold for... We had a conversation this morning about a property that sold for $1.79 million, and both of you and I were like, that's pretty good buying.
And it's not perfect.
Trust me, it's weird when you're thinking that something that's nearly $2 million is good buying when it's a 4-bedroom house that probably has a few little niggles with it, right? It's not a normal conversation to have. So it is understandable if you're not doing this all day, every day, that you see that and you go, holy shit, that's so expensive. But those people have the same challenges, right? Like, maybe their property has grown by 60% in value since they've bought it. Maybe it's doubled since they've bought it. Who knows? But their costs have gone up. Their wages certainly haven't grown by 60% or doubled or whatever it might be in most circumstances. So it's not this miracle world where they're just like upgrading for fun, right? And it's really important to understand that. And that's why you said the motivations are there to be uncovered. Questions are the answers. If you want to understand what somebody will sell a property for, understand why they are selling that property first. And then you can actually just build your offer and build your case around solving those problems. Yeah. And then the price is just the last thing. We say that all the time for a reason.
But again, by building that great offer, terms included, and price that you can justify, in the current market, you can stand your ground on those good offers too.
Oh, for sure.
Even if it's a case of presenting it, an agent will always go and fight for an extra dollar for their client. Expect that call. Even if you've put forward what is, in your eyes, the offer that's going to buy it, they will come back for more money. Feel free to say thank you, stand your ground, and see what happens in 24 hours' time.
Would-be client of ours, he actually sent us like an inquiry in the morning when we had our discovery call in the afternoon. He said, this is a bit weird, boys, but I've actually just made an offer on a property and I think we're going to buy it. And I was like, what's the address? And he told me what he offered. And I said, I don't think you need to offer any more. And the seller had counted at $100,000 above his offer. And I said to him, I was like, dude, it's like 6 o'clock on a Thursday night. No one's seeing that house until Saturday. Don't feel the pressure to increase. And between 6 o'clock Thursday or 6:15 Thursday when we hung up the phone and the 2 o'clock on the Saturday afternoon when he bought the property, he paid 20 grand more instead of the 100 they were looking for, because he had the confidence to stand his ground from a 15-minute conversation and the fact that during that Thursday he'd binged this podcast.
And there it was, us talking ourselves out of a client.
Yeah, but hey, that's reinforcing what we say it's all about. This is about helping people buy houses. And I think if you are the only offer, that's a really important question to ask. How many other people have made offers? Who else is negotiating? But if it's just you, have the confidence to say, hey, thank you. I don't know if we're ready to give more money. I think we've made a really good offer and here's why. And if you buy it, great. If you don't buy it, you buy yourself time to reconcile between you and your buying partner. Do we want to pay 20 grand, 40 grand, 100 grand more, right? Don't feel like you have to make those decisions in the moment and let your emotions guide you. It is a somewhat more logical market. There is still some emotion, I think, at play.
Placing offers is scary. Finding a place that is suitable enough that you want to offer on and buy is a scary prospect. But if you are getting all the information that you possibly can, particularly around other offers in play,
for sure,
where the expectations are from the seller, what their motivations are, it should become less scary because you're coming to it from a place of confidence, or at least coming to it from a place of understanding.
Yep.
And that's a great place to be making offers from.
For sure. I think a final point that I'll make just on fairness of market, widening gap between seller and buyer expectations, and just sort of the prices that are getting it done is anecdotally, and this is coming from both what we see ourselves at auctions, whether we're bidding or otherwise, and what agents are telling us, the better prices, so those prices that surprise the market, that they're like, geez, that's a lot of money, they're happening behind closed doors more than they are at auctions. And that is because of that gap. And that's because in public, buyers are like, I don't feel like I need to pay an extra 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 100 grand for this property.
There's 5 other people that look like me here
who are all saying the same sort of thing. We think we're all uncomfortable with where our bid is. So you guys go and talk to your sellers and sort it out, right? Because one of us will pay maybe 5 grand more versus behind the scenes where the agent gets the opportunity to manipulate the situation a little bit more. And I say manipulate, that doesn't mean it's malicious or nefarious or anything like that. That's just their job, right? They've got a situation, they want to work to the best. That is what they are being paid to do. It's a lot easier to get somebody confident and comfortable paying 30 grand more when they don't know what the other offer is. And so if you find yourselves in those best and finals circumstances, the key is to work out what it is worth to you, to that last dollar, and stick to your guns.
100%. And if you see that something's going to auction, have confidence. That is a great format in which to purchase in this current market.
I agree.
Guys, that is the late March market wrap. He's Sam. I'm Chase. Cue the song.